The corridor of Outpost 17 was quiet that night, except for the low hum of engines and the soft flicker of red maintenance lights. Lieutenant Ryan Cole walked slowly, hands tucked behind his back, trying to calm the storm inside his mind. The war had ended weeks ago, but the silence after so much chaos felt heavier than the explosions he used to hear every night. Now the base was shared between human soldiers and hired alien mercenaries, warriors from distant worlds who had fought alongside them when things looked hopeless. Among them was one who stood out from all the rest. Karen of the Blue Blades. Ryan had seen her fight once during the siege of Orion Pass. She had been unstoppable, her movements sharp, her glowing blade slicing through darkness like lightning. Her blue skin shimmered under firelight, her silver eyes focused and cold. But what caught Ryan most was not her strength. It was her silence. She never shouted orders, never laughed with the others. She fought like a ghost, always calm, always distant. No one really knew much about her. Some said she was born on a frozen moon where warriors were trained from childhood. Others whispered she had lost her entire squad in a single battle and never spoke of it again. Ryan didn't know what was true, but every time he passed her in the halls, something about her presence made his chest tighten. She was unlike any soldier he had ever met. That evening he couldn't sleep. The air in his quarters felt heavy, the silence too loud. He decided to take a walk to clear his thoughts, heading down to the training wing. Most soldiers were off duty at this hour, and he liked the emptiness there. But as he walked past the armory, a soft metallic sound made him pause. He turned his head. The door to the private training chamber was slightly open. Dim blue light spilled into the corridor. He hesitated, curiosity whispering in his ear. He stepped closer and looked through the narrow gap. Inside stood Karen. She had just finished training. Her breathing was slow, heavy, but steady. Her armor, sleek dark silver with glowing runes, was half removed. She stood in the center of the room, back turned, her long white hair falling over her shoulders. The dim light made her blue skin glow faintly like moonlight on calm water. Ryan froze. His mind told him to turn away, but his body didn't move. It wasn't desire that held him, it was awe. For the first time, she didn't look like the cold, perfect warrior everyone whispered about. She looked human in that quiet moment. Tired, scarred, breathing softly after another long day. And then she turned. Her silver eyes locked on him instantly. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. His heart jumped as if he'd been caught doing something forbidden. Karen didn't shout. She didn't reach for her weapon. She just stared at him, sharp, unreadable, her face calm but her gaze piercing. I'm sorry, Ryan stammered, stepping back quickly. I didn't mean to. Before he could finish, she moved. Fast. The door slid open completely and suddenly she was standing in front of him. Even without armor, she was taller, stronger, her presence overwhelming. Did you enjoy what you saw, human? She asked softly. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Ryan raised his hands. No, I didn't mean to look. I heard noise. I just wanted to make sure everything was fine. Karen tilted her head slightly, studying him. The glow from the training room reflected in her eyes, making them look like liquid silver. You humans, she said after a moment. Always curious, even when you shouldn't be. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was almost tired. She turned as if to walk away, but then stopped. Tell me, Lieutenant, she said quietly. What did you see? Ryan swallowed hard. He could have lied. He could have said he saw nothing. But something in her gaze demanded honesty. I saw a warrior, he said finally, strong and alone. Karen's expression shifted slightly. The anger, or whatever had been in her eyes, kinda softened. A warrior, she repeated almost to herself. That's all? That's all, Ryan said. Silence stretched between them. Then Karen nodded slowly. You are either foolish or brave, she said. Perhaps both. Ryan gave a nervous smile. I get that a lot. Karen's lips curved just a little. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make Ryan's chest feel lighter. She turned back toward the chamber. the door sliding shut behind her. Ryan stood there alone in the corridor, heart still racing. He had expected anger, maybe even punishment, but instead he had seen something else. A flicker of understanding in her eyes. He didn't know it yet, but that brief, awkward moment would be the start of something neither of them could ever forget. That night, for the first time in weeks, Ryan felt something break through the emptiness of war. A spark, faint but real. The next morning, Ryan woke up with a heavy mind. He had barely slept. The image of Karen standing there, her silver eyes locked on his, refused to leave his thoughts. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that cold, calm stare. He wasn't proud of what happened. He knew it was a mistake and an accident born of curiosity. But still, shame lingered like a shadow in his chest. He spent most of the morning avoiding everyone. He skipped breakfast in the mess hall and stayed in the maintenance bay, pretending to work on damaged drones. The base felt quieter than usual, or maybe it was just his guilt making everything sound distant. By afternoon, he had convinced himself that Karen had already forgotten about the incident. She was a professional, a mercenary used to worse things than a foolish human's mistake. Maybe she didn't care. Maybe she would never mention it. But when he entered the training arena later that day, he froze again. Karen was there, waiting. She stood in full armor this time, the same cold grace surrounding her. The plasma blade on her hip glowed faintly, and her expression was unreadable. Ryan's heart sank. "You came back," she said. Her voice was calm but heavy like distant thunder. "I needed to train," Ryan replied, trying to sound casual. "Is that all?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "You humans often return to face what frightens you. That is both foolish and admirable." Ryan swallowed hard. "If you're here to punish me, just say it. I deserve that." Karen's gaze didn't soften. "Punishment?" she repeated slowly. "You think I am angry because you saw me without armor?" Ryan looked down. "You should be." It was disrespectful. For a moment she said nothing. Then, with a sound like metal sliding against metal, she removed her helmet and placed it beside her. Her white hair fell around her shoulders and her glowing eyes fixed on him. "I am not angry," she said softly. "I am curious." That caught him off guard. "Curious?" "Yes," she replied, stepping closer. "You saw something you should not have, yet you did not run. You did not speak. You stood still." Her tone changed, not cold now, but thoughtful. "Why?" Ryan hesitated. He didn't know how to explain it without sounding foolish. "Because it wasn't about what I saw. It was about you," he said finally. "You looked tired. Not like a warrior, but like someone who carries too much." Karen's expression flickered for the briefest moment. A small crack in her calm mask. "You think a warrior should not look tired?" "I think even warriors need to rest," Ryan said. "Even someone like you." She stared at him for a long time. The silence stretched, heavy but not hostile. Finally Karen sighed, a slow, quiet sound, almost human. "You humans, you see too deeply. Always searching for weakness or meaning." "Maybe we just see what's real," Ryan said softly. Her eyes met his, and for the first time he thought he saw a spark of something. Not anger, not mockery, but understanding. "I was raised to be seen only as strength," she said after a while. "Our kind are warriors from birth. We are not allowed to show pain or rest or fear. To be seen without armor," she paused, her voice almost breaking, "is to be seen as less." Ryan's chest tightened. "Then I owe you an apology. Not because I saw you, but because I made you feel that way." Karen studied him for another moment, her gaze softer now. "You speak like someone who knows loss," she said quietly. "I do," Ryan answered. "War takes pieces of you. Sometimes you don't even realize what's gone until it's too late." Karen nodded slowly. "Then perhaps we are not so different." She turned away, walking toward the far wall. The light from the training arena shimmered off her armor as she spoke again, her voice gentler now. "You looked human, but you also saw. There is a difference. Ryan frowned. You're not angry? Karen glanced over her shoulder, her eyes glinting faintly. If I were, you would not be standing here. Ryan couldn't help but let out a small, nervous laugh. That's fair. Her lips curved slightly, almost forming a smile, the smallest sign of warmth breaking through her usual coldness. Perhaps next time you will knock, she said, turning toward the exit. As she walked away, Ryan felt the strange weight of relief and confusion mixing inside him. He had expected fury or punishment, but instead she had given him something else. A lesson. A glimpse into the loneliness behind her unshakable strength. When the door closed behind her, Ryan stood in silence, the air around him still humming with her presence. For the first time he realized something important. Strength wasn't always about fighting. Sometimes it was about being seen even when it hurt, and though he didn't know why, he felt that Karen had allowed him to see just a small part of her truth, something no one else had ever been allowed to witness. The next few days passed quietly, but the memory of that strange conversation stayed with Ryan like a whisper he couldn't shake. Every time he saw Karen in the hall, their eyes would meet for a moment. Not long, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough for him to feel the silent understanding between them. There was no anger in her gaze anymore, only calm recognition. Ryan had always believed that aliens and humans would never truly understand each other, but Karen made him question that belief. There was something about the way she carried herself, so disciplined, so heavy with untold stories, that reminded him of every human soldier who had lost something in the war. One evening he found her sitting alone in the observation deck. The giant glass panels looked out into the endless darkness of space, stars glimmering like shards of frozen light. She wasn't wearing her armor, just a light training suit, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. Ryan hesitated at the door. He didn't want to intrude again. But she spoke first, her voice calm and quiet. You can come in, Lieutenant. I know your steps by now. He smiled faintly and walked in, sitting a few feet away from her. Didn't mean to bother you, he said softly. You are not bothering me, she replied without turning her head. I was simply thinking. He looked out at the stars with her. About what? Karen's shoulders moved slightly. Not a shrug, more like a breath she didn't know how to release. About home, she said at last. It has been a long time since I have seen it. Ryan stayed quiet, waiting. On Zira, she continued slowly, the sky glows purple when the twin suns set. The oceans shimmer like glass. I used to sit with my squad mates by the cliffs watching the stars rise. We believed that each light was a fallen warrior's spirit, guiding us to victory. Her voice softened, the faintest crack showing beneath it. Now I look at these stars, and I see their faces. Ryan's chest tightened. You lost them, he said gently. All of them, she answered. We were the Blue Blades, elite fighters sworn to protect the colonies. We fought until there was nothing left. When the last battle came, I survived. They did not. She looked down at her hands. Since that day, I have carried their names carved inside my armor. But I do not wear them with pride anymore. Only memory. Ryan didn't know what to say. He understood loss. He had lost friends too, but hearing it from her made it feel deeper, heavier. You fight because you have to, he said quietly. But sometimes it's not enough to keep the ghosts away. Kyren's gaze turned toward him, her silver eyes softer than he had ever seen. And you, human? What ghosts follow you? Ryan took a long breath. A friend, he said finally. His name was Alan. We trained together on Earth. He always joked that he'd retire early and buy a little house by the ocean. But he never made it home. He died covering my escape during the siege of Orion. Karen's expression didn't change, but her silence felt full, understanding without words. Then you fight for his memory, she said. Ryan nodded. And for others like him. I think that's what keeps me going. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, two soldiers from two worlds, watching the stars that reminded them of people they could never see again. Finally, Karen broke the silence. You humans have a strange strength, she said softly. You carry pain not as a burden but as a reason to live. Ryan smiled faintly. It's the only way we know how. Karen turned to look at him fully now. Perhaps that is why you looked at me that night, she said. You did not see a weapon. You saw someone trying to remember who they were before the battles. He nodded slowly. Maybe that's what I saw. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment longer. Then she rose to her feet, her movement graceful and controlled as always. You should rest, Lieutenant, she said, her voice softer than before. War teaches us to stay awake, but peace needs sleep. Ryan chuckled quietly. That sounds like advice. Maybe it is, she replied, turning toward the door. Before leaving, she glanced back at him once more. Thank you for listening, she said simply. Ryan watched as she walked away, her figure disappearing into the corridor. The stars still glowed faintly against the glass, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel alone while looking at them. In that quiet night, Ryan realized that between him and Karen, something unspoken had begun. Not love, not yet, but understanding. The kind of bond only two broken souls could build in the silence after war. You said, the next few weeks passed like a quiet rhythm. Duty, training, rest, repeat. But for Ryan, everything felt different now. Every time he saw Karen, the silence that once surrounded her no longer seemed cold. It felt calm, comfortable. He didn't fully understand what was changing between them, but he knew one thing for certain. She was no longer just the mysterious alien warrior everyone feared to approach. She had become someone real to him. They started training together often. At first, their sessions were formal, movements precise, words few. Karen would correct his stance, demonstrate technique, and walk away without a glance. But slowly, the distance between them began to shrink. She started to speak more. Small things at first, simple questions about Earth or the way humans fought without honor blades. Then she began to listen when he spoke. One day after a long sparring session, they sat beside the arena wall catching their breath. Sweat glistened on Ryan's skin and faint blue shimmered along Karen's arms from the light. For a long moment neither spoke. You fight better now, she said finally, her voice softer than usual. Ryan smiled faintly. That's because I'm learning from the best. Karen looked at him, a spark of amusement in her silver eyes. Flattery, a very human trait. Does it work? He asked, half joking. She didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth curved just slightly. Sometimes. They both laughed quietly, a sound that felt new between them. The air was lighter now, warmer somehow. After a moment, Karen grew thoughtful again. On my world, she began, we are taught that warriors must be unshakable, that emotion clouds the mind and weakens the blade. But lately, she looked at him carefully. I wonder if strength also means allowing yourself to feel. Ryan nodded slowly. Back on Earth, we're taught the opposite. That emotion is what makes us strong. But I guess too much of either can break you. Karen tilted her head, considering his words. Maybe that's why your people survive so much, she said softly. You fight not just with weapons, but with hearts that refuse to die. Her tone carried something like admiration, and Ryan felt his chest tighten with warmth. He looked at her, and for the first time she didn't look away. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore, and it was peaceful. That night the mess hall was nearly empty when Karen joined him for dinner. It was unusual. Sirens rarely ate with humans. She carried her food carefully, then sat across from him without a word. Ryan tried not to stare, but he couldn't help smiling. Everyone's going to think I bribed you, he said playfully. Karen gave a small shrug. Let them think. A warrior chooses her company, not her reputation. As they ate, they spoke about smaller things, not war, not pain, but life. Ryan told her about the sound of rain on Earth, how people would just sit by windows to listen to it. Karen told him about the glowing oceans of Zira, how the waves would hum softly during the twin moon's rise. "It sounds beautiful," Ryan said quietly. "It was," she replied, "until war turned beauty into memory." Her words carried sadness, but her eyes didn't look away. Ryan leaned slightly forward. "Maybe. Someday you'll see it again." Karen didn't answer right away. Then she said, "And you? Do you ever wish to see your home again?" "Every day," Ryan admitted. "But I'm not sure what home looks like anymore." "People change after war. So do places." Karen nodded slowly. "Then maybe home isn't a place," she said. "Maybe it's the people who remind you that you're still alive." Ryan froze, her words hitting deeper than he expected. When their eyes met again, something unspoken passed between them. Fragile but real. Later that evening, as they left the mess hall, Karen stopped at the door and looked at him. "You humans are strange," she said softly. Ryan smiled. "You keep saying that." "Yes," she said. "And yet I keep wanting to understand why." Then she walked away, her soft blue light fading into the dim corridor. Ryan stood there for a long time, watching her go, the words echoing in his mind. He realized then that Karen wasn't the only one whose walls were falling. His were too. And for the first time since the war began, Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not for victory, not for survival, but for connection. For something beyond the stars and uniforms. Because when Karen spoke to him, she didn't sound like a mercenary or a soldier. She sounded like someone searching for meaning, just like he was. And in that quiet realization, Ryan knew that whatever was growing between them was no accident. It was something deeper, something that neither of them could stop, even if they tried. "You said." The peace that had slowly settled over the base felt fragile, like glass that could shatter with the smallest touch. And one morning it did. The alarm screamed across Outpost 17, red lights flashing wildly through the corridors. Ryan woke to the sound of shouting soldiers and the thunder of heavy footsteps. Outside, the sky burned orange. Enemy ships were descending through the clouds like falling fire. He grabbed his rifle, his heart pounding. The comms crackled with static before the voice of the commander broke through. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." Ryan ran down the corridor, his boots slamming against the floor, smoke already creeping through the hallways. Then he saw her, Karen, standing in the middle of the chaos, her armor gleaming under the flickering lights, her plasma blade humming with blue fire. "Karen!" he shouted, pushing through the soldiers. She turned, her calm face the only steady thing in the storm. "You shouldn't be here," she said firmly. "The North Hangar's under siege." "Take cover." Ryan shook his head. "I can fight." Karen's eyes flickered with worry, a rare expression from her. "Then stay close. And do not die, human." He almost smiled, but there was no time. The corridor behind them erupted in a burst of flame as enemy drones broke through the wall. Karen moved like lightning, her blade slicing through metal and sparks. Ryan fired from behind her, covering her flank. The two of them fighting as if they had trained for this moment all their lives. They moved together, her speed and strength, his precision and focus, covering each other without a word. The connection between them was instinctive now, born not of command but of trust. "Two more coming from the left," Ryan shouted. "I see them," Karen replied, spinning and striking both drones in a single arc of blue light. Pieces of burning metal scattered across the floor. They pushed forward through smoke and gunfire toward the hangar where the largest breach had opened. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and burnt steel. The walls shook as the enemy ships landed outside, unloading wave after wave of soldiers. When they reached the hangar, chaos reigned. Dozens of human troops and alien mercenaries fought side by side against the invaders. Ryan and Karen joined the front line, their movements blending in perfect rhythm. But then everything went wrong. An explosion ripped through the upper deck, sending debris crashing down. Ryan was thrown off his feet. Pain tore through his leg as a heavy beam pinned him to the ground. The world spun, fire, scream, smoke. "Karen!" he shouted, coughing. Through the haze, he saw her fighting near the blast zone, cutting down enemy soldiers one after another. But when she turned and saw him trapped, her expression changed. Without hesitation, she ran toward him, deflecting blaster fire with her blade, moving through falling debris. "Stay still," she shouted. "You can't—" But before he could finish, she knelt beside him, lifting the metal beam with a growl of effort. Her armor cracked under the strain, the blue glow dimming. Finally, she pulled him free, dragging him behind cover. "Why did you come back?" Ryan gasped, clutching his bleeding leg. "You could have escaped." Karen looked at him, her face fierce but gentle. "And leave you? No, you fight beside me, remember? That means I protect you." Ryan stared at her, speechless. There was no arrogance in her words, only truth. They stayed low as explosions echoed around them. Karen checked his wound quickly, her hands steady. "You'll live," she said, "but you can't move fast. I'll hold them off." "Wait!" He grabbed her wrist weakly. "You'll be killed!" Karen met his eyes. "Then I'll die doing what feels right." She stood up before he could stop her, stepping out from cover. Her plasma blade roared to life again, its blue light slicing through the smoke. Ryan could only watch, half in awe, half in terror, as she fought like a living storm, her movements a blur of strength and grace. Every strike, every block was precise and desperate. Finally, reinforcements arrived, human gunships cutting through the enemy ranks. The tide began to turn. The invaders pulled back, retreating to their damaged ships. When the last blast faded, Karen fell to her knees, her armor scorched, her breathing heavy. Ryan crawled toward her, ignoring the pain. "You did it," he whispered. She looked at him, a faint smile touching her lips. "We did it," she corrected softly. Then she reached out, placing her hand gently over his chest. "You humans, always running toward danger. Perhaps that is why I stayed." Her voice trembled slightly, though her eyes stayed calm. For the first time, Ryan saw the truth behind that warrior mask, the fear of losing someone again. In that burning hangar, surrounded by wreckage and smoke, they sat together in silence. The battle was over, but something else had changed forever. Because in that moment, Karen realized she didn't just fight beside a human. She had fought for one. And Ryan, bleeding, exhausted, and shaken, understood that he would never see her as just a mercenary again. She had become something far more than that. A guardian, a friend, maybe even something his heart wasn't ready to name. "You said..." The battlefield was silent now. Smoke drifted through the broken hangar and the smell of burnt metal hung heavy in the air. The battle was won, but victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. Ryan lay on a stretcher in the med bay, his leg wrapped tightly in white bandages. The lights above him flickered softly, casting shadows on his tired face. Every muscle in his body ached, but his mind refused to rest. His thoughts were filled with one image: Karen standing amid the flames, her blue skin marked with soot, her armor broken yet her spirit unshaken. He hadn't seen her since the medics dragged him off the field. Every hour that passed without her face appearing at the door made his heart beat faster with worry. What if she had been hurt worse than she showed? What if she was gone? The door hissed open. Ryan looked up and his breath caught. Karen stood there, her armor replaced by a simple gray cloak. Her left arm was wrapped in a healing brace, faint burns tracing along her skin, but her eyes, sharp, silver blue, were steady and alive. "You should be resting," Ryan said softly. "I was told the same," Karen replied, stepping closer. "But rest is difficult when you worry." He smiled weakly. "So you were worried." Her gaze lowered for a moment, as if embarrassed. "You are reckless," she said. "Humans seem to believe they are indestructible." "Not all of us," he said. "I just didn't want to leave you out there alone." Karen looked at him then, really looked, and something in her expression softened. She sat beside his bed, her cloak brushing the floor. The faint hum of the medical machines filled the silence between them. "You fought well," she said at last. "Better than I expected," Ryan chuckled. "I had a good teacher." She tilted her head. "Teacher?" "Yeah, you," he said, his voice low. You taught me how to survive, how to fight, how to care again. Her eyes widened slightly at the last words. Care? He hesitated, his throat tightening. When I joined this outpost, I didn't care if I lived or died. I just wanted to feel like I mattered to someone. But when I saw you out there, standing against everything, refusing to give up, I realized I did matter. At least to you. Karen didn't speak at first. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her cloak, her heart caught between duty and emotion. In her world, attachments were dangerous. They led to weakness. But this human, this foolish, brave, loyal human, had broken through every wall she had built around her heart. You misunderstand, she said quietly, though her voice trembled. Mercenaries do not form bonds. Ryan gave a small, tired laugh. Then maybe you're not just a mercenary anymore. The silence that followed was deep and heavy. Karen looked down, her silver blue eyes glimmering in the dim light. She reached out suddenly and placed her hand gently over his, not out of duty but choice. Her hand was cool, her touch firm but careful. You almost died, she whispered. I'm still here, he said softly. Because of you. Karen's jaw tightened. She wanted to scold him for risking himself. But the words that came out were different. Do not make me worry like that again. He smiled faintly. I'll try not to. They sat like that for a long time. Her hand on his. Two souls from different worlds sharing a rare moment of peace. Outside the medbay, the base was rebuilding. Soldiers carried debris away, engineers repaired the walls, and life slowly began to return. But for Ryan, everything had already changed. He didn't see Karen as the cold, untouchable alien warrior anymore. She was real, strong, scarred, vulnerable in her own quiet way. Before she left, Karen paused at the door. When you can walk again, she said, come to the west platform at sunset. There is something I wish to show you. Ryan blinked. What is it? You will see, she replied, a faint smile curving her lips. The first true smile he had ever seen from her. Then she turned and left, her cloak trailing behind her like a whisper. When the door closed, Ryan lay there staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, his heart felt light, not because he was healed, but because he had something to look forward to. And somewhere deep inside him, a realization took root, that his bond with Karen was no accident of war. It was something deeper, something that defied the boundaries of species and worlds. As he closed his eyes, he could still hear her voice echoing in his mind. Do not make me worry like that again. It wasn't a command. It was a confession, one he would never forget. You said. The sky was painted in shades of gold and violet when Ryan finally walked to the west platform. His limp was faint now, but every step reminded him of the battle they had survived, and of the alien warrior who had stood between him and death. He stopped near the edge, the wind brushing against his face. Below, the planet's surface stretched endlessly, a sea of red dust and silver lakes reflecting the fading sun. The view was breathtaking, but his eyes searched for her. He didn't wait long. Karen appeared behind him, silent as always, her cloak fluttering in the soft breeze. The setting sun caught the edges of her blue skin, turning her almost luminous, like she was made of light and shadow both. You came, she said quietly. Ryan turned, smiling. You didn't think I'd miss this, did you? Her lips curved slightly, that rare, almost smile she saved only for him. You humans, always drawn to beauty. Not just beauty, he said, his voice soft but certain. To meaning. For a moment she said nothing. Then she stepped beside him, both of them watching the sun dip lower. The world seemed to hold its breath. This is where I stand after every battle, Karen said at last. To remember. Remember what? Those I could not save, she replied, her voice distant. On my world, we honor the fallen by facing the light one last time for them. It reminds us that even in loss, the sun still rises again. Ryan looked at her, seeing not just the warrior, but the woman beneath the armor. The one who carried too many ghosts. You've lost a lot, haven't you? he asked softly. Karen nodded slowly. My unit, my sister, my people, that is why I became a mercenary. I thought fighting for others would numb the pain. Did it? She turned her silver blue eyes to him. Until I met you. Yes. Ryan's chest tightened. Karen, she raised a hand gently, stopping him. When you looked at me that first day, I wanted to scare you away. Humans stare, but you saw me. Even when I was covered in blood and armor, you did not look away. You looked as if I was still someone worth saving. He swallowed hard. Because you are. Karen's gaze softened, and for a long time neither of them spoke. The orange sun touched the horizon, turning her blue skin to gold. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of everything they couldn't say. Finally she broke it. I am leaving, she said quietly. The words hit him like a blow. Leaving? There are other colonies under threat. The Alliance has asked for mercenaries to help. I must go. He stared at her, his heart sinking. After everything we went through, you're just going to walk away? Karen looked down. It is what I do. It is all I know. Ryan stepped closer, his voice trembling. You could stay? You don't have to keep running from your past. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Her eyes met his, and for the first time they were filled with conflict. If I stay, I might forget what I was meant to be. Or, Ryan said softly, you might finally become who you were meant to be. She stared at him, her jaw tightening, her breath uneven. Then slowly, she removed the small insignia plate from her shoulder, the mark of her mercenary contract, and placed it in his hand. I do not know what comes next, she whispered. But wherever I go, I will carry this bond between us. It will remind me that even across galaxies, some things are worth protecting. Ryan closed his fingers around the insignia, his eyes wet. And I'll keep fighting here, for both of us. Karen hesitated for a long moment, then stepped closer. Her hand reached up, resting lightly on his cheek. You humans, she murmured, so fragile, yet somehow you change everything you touch. He leaned into her touch, memorizing the warmth of her hand. And you, he said, so strong, yet somehow you let me in. She smiled, a real smile this time, filled with emotion. Perhaps that is the greatest battle I ever lost. The sun disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving the world bathed in soft twilight. Karen turned away, her cloak rippling like a shadow in the fading light. Karen, Ryan called, his voice breaking slightly. Will I see you again? She paused, looking back one last time. If the stars are kind, she said, and if you keep watching the sunsets, you will find me there. Then she walked toward her waiting ship, disappearing into the glow of the launch bay. The engines roared softly, and in moments she was gone, a streak of blue light vanishing into the endless night sky. Ryan stood alone on the platform, the insignia still warm in his palm. Above him the stars shimmered, distant, endless, and yet somehow closer than ever before. He smiled faintly, whispering to the wind, I'll be here when you return. And as the first stars broke through the twilight, he felt something deep inside him, a quiet peace, a promise that stretched beyond worlds. Because though they came from different stars, their hearts had found the same light, and in that light their story and their bond would never fade.